Yes, greetings once again and welcome to our YouTube channel, CK Sports, where we discuss everything Ugandan, East African, CECAFA and African football. We try to look for the answers, we try to look for the people with the answers, and we talk to them so that we can find the different solutions or the questions that you have. Our guest today is special in so many ways because he is a man who is in charge of running, or part of the body that is in charge of running football in this region that we call the CECAFA, that is the Confederation of East and Central Africa Football Association. And this is none other than Auka Gecheo, who is the executive director of the CECAFA region. I was just sharing with you that you got a job and you rebranded the position, because in CECAFA we are so much used to the Secretary General, the General Secretary, but when you came in, taking over from Mr. Nicholas Musonye, the position changed from Secretary General to Executive Director.
I think you're giving me a lot of credit. And just a small correction, CECAFA is Council,
not Confederation.
It's Council of East and Central Africa Football Association. Thank you so much for having me.
Greetings, and we humbled to have you on set. I know you're not a stranger to Uganda, but how are you finding the environment?
Always love it being in Kampala. Beautiful city, fantastic human beings, good people. Really, and like you said, our second home for a lot of us. It's the first country I traveled to out of Kenya.
Really?
So I hold it very dearly, and I always enjoy being here in Kampala.
Interesting. The first country I traveled out of Uganda was Kenya. I had to endure 13 hours on the road.
We were young then and full of energy. We could do it.
Now they tell you to do the bus and you're like, no way.
Yeah, but great.
Well, of course, there's a lot to talk about, and every time CECAFA comes into the discussion, people want to focus on what is CECAFA not doing right. Of course, we're going to look at what CECAFA is not doing right, but I believe at the end of this discussion, we should be able to also find the answers to the things that CECAFA is not doing right.
Hopefully.
And the question that very many people are asking is the inconsistency in two of the most prominent competitions in the CECAFA region. The Challenge Cup
and the Kagame Cup.
The Kagame Cup. And the question is, why are we not having these competitions organized consistently?
It's a question that has really come up a lot of time, and I'm afraid that I'm starting to sound like a broken record. Listen, flagship events, those have been the flagship tournaments for CECAFA, the Kagame Cup and the Senior Challenge Cup over the years. But the football landscape has changed. So if you go back to when we consistently played Kagame Cup and Senior Challenge, the football landscape, the football calendar was rather it was much more flexible. We didn't have African competitions, we didn't have the kind of
competitions we have today.
Champions League we have today, Confederation Cup that we have today. Our leagues were not as developed as they are today. If you look at our leagues right across all our member associations, if you look at the Ethiopian Premier League, if you look at the Kenya Premier League, Uganda here, your Super League, if you look at Tanzania, one of the most vibrant leagues that we have in the continent, this has really changed. The emphasis being placed on leagues and clubs winning competition has significantly changed, which then means that availability of these clubs to be able to play at other competition, has significantly been impacted. We now have World Cup qualifiers, AFCON qualifiers. So even if you look at the national team, at national team level rather, any space that is available is taken up by your senior national teams, either playing in World Cup qualifiers, playing in AFCON qualifiers. So we are victims of success and growth of football in the region. It then becomes extremely difficult to see where to put these competitions in your calendar, just simply because of that. We had a very successful Dapot Kagame Cup last year in Dar es Salaam. I think it went very well. We used it as a pre-season for clubs coming into the new season.
Yeah.
And the feedback we are getting from clubs like Al Ahly who competed and Red Arrows who competed and how it has impacted them both in their leagues and in the African competition. Al Ahly are leading their group in
3-3.
exactly 3-3, and the feedback we're getting is that it's very good. So we're asking ourselves that maybe we need to take Kagame Cup and put it as a pre-season for our clubs and see if we can be able to get the clubs to participate. And last year was a very good trial run for us, and we think that will happen. In as far as senior challenge goes, in World Cup qualifier years and in AFCON qualifier years, you'll struggle to have that competition.
Fixed in the calendar.
So maybe do we look at it as competitions that we play outside of World Cup qualifiers and AFCON qualifiers years? Then maybe it will make sense because you provide an opportunity for the member associations to be able to, compete against each other and, fulfill a FIFA criteria of how many number of games that they want to play. Or do we look at another model? Do we say then adapt the League of Nations kind of model that is being used in Europe, where we say we look at playing it differently and not taking a whole month of a block and expecting availability of teams to be able to come in and play for a tournament for a whole month, but instead change it to Champions League, a Nations League kind of model where you play each other as and when there is availability in the calendar.
The other issue, the challenge of not having uniform football calendars across the region. Could that be one of the reasons?
That used to be a reason. It's getting harmonized. Now, more or less, a lot of our member associations, I think 80% of our member associations, 70 to 80% have a more or less aligned calendar. What the football world has done is to align it with what has been traditionally the European football calendar. And, and that is coming into place, bar for a couple of countries. That may be a small challenge, but I don't think that is one of the biggest challenges we have. It used to be a bit way back, a couple of years back. Now more and more of member associations are aligning their calendar. So that hurdle, we are crossing it.
Then there's the issue of financial and sponsorship constraints. Over the years, how has this affected the region?
It's always been a challenge. I keep on reminding everyone that CECAFA is a very diverse region, culturally, politically, from a religious perspective, from a language perspective, and the biggest challenge you find with that kind of diversity is just getting a homogeneous partner that can cut across some of these territories. Resourcing has always been a problem, even at the highest level. I mean, even at FIFA level, they will do with more resources. At CAF level, they will do with more resources. We've started attracting partners, but from where I come from, I think a lot of that work had to come from us, because partners will only come on board if you're giving them a property that makes sense, that has value for them. And have we created those properties? So one of the first questions we asked ourselves early on is to say, have we been consistent enough? Are we creating properties? Are we out there? Are we constantly being seen to be active and, putting football on the faces of everyone, top of mind for everyone, such that then partners can resonate with the CECAFA brand and say, we know about them, they've been consistent, they're doing one or two things that we know about, we think it's a brand that we want to associate with, and I think we are seeing that coming in. It's never an easy thing. It's never walk into someone's office and knock and you walk out with a wand of cash. But I think over the last couple of years we've been consistent enough in terms of how we've put our tournaments out there, in terms of how we've showcased the properties that we have. And last year we had Darport come in as one of our partners. Azam has continued to be our partner over the years.
As a broadcast or as a sponsor?
As a broadcast partner. And it's our hope that we will see them coming in and we'll continue doing much more.
What measures do you think you'll need to put in place to make sure that you retain these partners and probably have more coming on board?
We just have to be consistent in the properties that we offer them. We need to offer them high quality properties that they associate with, that gives their brand values. In this modern day and time, there's no one who does partnerships for CSR purposes. Everyone is there. You have to resonate with their brand values. You have to resonate with what the brand wants to be associated with or intends to be associated with. So as long as we are consistent, one, in terms of ensuring that we are constantly playing in competitions. Once we are doing Kagame Cup, it's consistent. So if it's every year, it's every year. If it's every 2 years, if we are consistent with that, and if this properties are of high quality. You know, we're offering good competition, fairly well managed, properly officiated, people coming out into the stadiums in numbers to cheer for their teams, then we will be making progress.
How important is a broadcaster in getting more sponsors on board? Because I remember the days of Super Sports, the competition was big, not only in the region, but across the continent because of the places that Super Sports were broadcasting. But also, it attracted regional sponsors on board.
The
It's
world
like
over.
when Super Sport left, all these
Globally,
sponsors left.
globally, broadcast is not only important in bringing in other partners, but it's the biggest revenue earner for sporting properties. So a broadcast partner is very, very important. Of course, the landscape has changed significantly since Supersport left the East African market. As have come in, they are also been very important and fundamental in, you know, showcasing CECAFA, showcasing the region, showcasing our football, and they're doing a good job also. But I think, like I said, I would not want to point fingers outside, but look within and say, within ourselves, this is our property. So even for that broadcast partner to be on board, we need to present to the broadcast partner a compelling proposition, you know, a fairly fantastic value proposition to them, for them to be able to say, we think this makes sense to us. And we are not only coming in to support it in terms of resourcing from a cash perspective, but we also put effort into amplifying it and, you know, getting it known outside there and broadcasting it so that, you know, other partners can jump on board to be part and parcel of what we are doing.
Well, the consistency and, of course, having these competitions regularly. Yeah, you talk about the different things that are being looked at or observed as areas of a concern to adjust. Do you think there's a time frame where you'll probably say by the year 2025, by the year 2026, would have found a permanent plan to the challenges that we are facing?
I will be naive of me to look at it that way. Listen, we're still very much in our formative years. We're in our formative stages, rather. We're still putting in the foundations. Like I said, we're living in very interesting times and in a very interesting and diverse region. A lot of shifting pieces and shifting blocks. So while the EXCO of CECAFA and the member associations are really, from a strategic point of view, putting in their effort in terms of saying which direction do we want to take, how do we want to do things, what are the benefits we want to see. We also have to be very cognizant of you know, the changes that are happening in football every single day. I think what is important for us is to not lose focus of where we want to go and the foundation we want to set, because that's the most important thing. Once we get our foundation right, once we get our basics right, once we say, listen, this is where we are, our house is built on a very solid foundation, it becomes easier to then put the rest of the building blocks in place, even if we will be constrained by resources, even if we will be constrained by, you know, it's like building a house. You might have a plan, but things change along the way, and you say, just hold on to that house for a bit, let me pay school fees first, then I'll come back and continue. So as long as we get our foundation right, we will be in a good position to move forward. But I think most importantly also is to also take cognizance of the fact that we work with 4-year cycles, and for us, if within the next 4 years we can have a solid foundation and a solid plan as to where we want to take this organization, then I think we'll have done our bit.
Of course, we are a council of 12 member associations. One will say 13 with Zanzibar.
It's actually 11, 12 plus Zanzibar.
12 plus Zanzibar, okay. Yes. And we all have different challenges here and there. But how have they been supportive to see to it that actually, as an executive at the level where you sit or where these plans are made, you are actually able to have them implemented in the long run?
Remember, CECAFA is not an amorphous body that, you know, sits by itself or, and runs its own affairs. It's made up of these member associations, and we wouldn't be where we are if the member associations were aloof or are not part and parcel of what we're doing. And I think a lot of the successes that we are seeing, a lot of the building blocks that we are putting in place, really comes from, our member associations then, pulling in the same direction and seeing the vision and seeing the importance of what CECAFA is to each and every one of them. The consistency in terms of participation in tournaments, in terms of participation in workshops that we carry out, in terms of being part and parcel of this journey that we are walking, has been very significant. Of course, like I said, a very diverse group of member associations with each with very unique challenges that they face, by themselves. The challenges in Eritrea are totally different from the challenges in Tanzania. True. The challenges in Burundi are totally different from the challenges in Sudan, for example. And, from political issues, from civil strifes, from historical issues amongst our member associations. There's quite a lot of challenges, but I think the most important thing is the fact that from the president's perspective, all the 11 plus 1, 12 presidents of CECAFA, the vision in terms of where they want CECAFA to be is the same. They're very clear about the fact that they want us to be competitive enough. They want to see more and more of our member associations participating in continental and global competitions. The unity and the harmony and the togetherness. When, for example, Tanzania qualified for the Under-17 Women's World Cup, or when Kenya went for the Under-17 Women's World Cup this year, the pride that you see emanating from all of them really speaks volumes to, the fact that it is very important for them that development happens in the region, that our member associations compete at the highest level, and that each and every one of us is pulling in the same direction and ensuring that we are a zonal union that is well recognized out there, not only as a zonal union, but also that our member associations are competing at the highest level. So that is very critical for each and every one of us. And despite all the challenges we have, we continue to try and pull in the same direction.
Yes, I talk about challenges. Of course, we have the under-17 regional qualifiers are going on here in Kampala, Uganda. For a council or a region of 11 member associations, we had only 6 turning up. Of course, others pulling out at the last minute. What are some of the reasons that these national federations gave for their under-17s to pull out?
There's financial reasons, there's logistical reasons, and there's reasons. Under-17 is an age grade tournament for schools, and then what you have to realize, this is called school-going children. Calendars in a country like Ethiopia are slightly different from ours. So, when some of these challenges are put in front of us, you definitely accept and say, we understand where you're coming from, we understand the challenge that you face, and we try and accommodate them. But like I said, we continue to really try very hard to ensure that all our members are participating, and they have every willingness to do it. And where challenges come up and they cannot do it, we try to understand them. We try and make it better and say, how do we improve on this come next year? Under-17 has MRI tests. One of the things that I'm very proud about this tournament is that we've not had one single player fail the MRI test, which has been one of the biggest problems. I mean, in
like the member associations did their homework before the team.
Exactly, and that also speaks to, and I think maybe those are some of the credits that we need to give our member associations. A lot of us in football, like you said, we look at the challenges, we look at where we don't get it right. But we've had 6 member associations participating in our under-17 qualifiers, and not one player, I'm not saying one team, not one player failed the MRI test.
Unlike the first.
In my first edition, we sent home 2 teams. In my second edition, we sent away 3 teams. I keep on saying the under-17 tournament is the most difficult tournament to run. And for you to see even the member associations themselves taking age cheating that seriously and ensuring that it's not happening, it speaks volume to the strides that we've made in terms of moving forward and just ensuring that there's fair play in football. So MRI also is a challenge. So the ability maybe for some of our member associations to do the tests at home and to ensure that they have the right players might not be there, so because of lack of those facilities. So we understand these challenges, but what is important for us is we try and mitigate them and say, okay, how do we, overcome this for any particular member association, so that we ensure that come the next edition you are participating.
And yes, despite all the challenges, the council has tried its level best to have a little bit of consistency with the underage teams, not only boys, but also the girls. How tough has this been for at least try to have these competitions happening consistently?
Yes, it's been tough, but I think credit has to be given to our member associations, to the EXCO of CECAFA, and to CAF for being very clear about the fact that development and age grade is a critical component in the growth of football in member associations. And therefore, member associations have also, put their hands up and said, listen, we also want to be part and parcel of this success and these steps that you're carrying forward. So it's been tough, just in terms of, for example, trying to get women's football played in some of our member associations for cultural, religious reasons. It has not been very easy, but we're seeing 95% of our member associations now taking part in women's football, having a women's desk. So that speaks volumes to the growth of the women's game. Over the last 4-5 years, we've consistently played 3 women's tournaments every year at both senior and age grade level. There is more coming up. We are looking at doing an under 20 women's tournament early next year, and an under 17. We are trialing, as a zone, we are trialing a CAF under 17 zonal qualifiers for AFCON. And we'll be doing that also next year. And hopefully, once that trial is done, it will be rolled out across Africa. So I think in the women's
that's
game,
the grand plan for women's football in the region.
Exactly. In the women's game across Africa, there's been a huge strides. And I've always said that, in my view, and this is my personal view, that has always been a low-hanging fruit for this part of the world. I think our women's senior teams will go to the World Cup before our men's senior teams go to the World Cup. I mean, I'm wishing our men's
We've
senior
already
team.
had 2 under 17
We've already had
girls
2
from
under
Tanzania and
17,
Kenya.
Tanzania and Kenya go. And I think that pathway and what the member associations are doing in as far as women's football is concerned, I think we have a fantastic pathway. And that's, like I said, that's a low-hanging fruit for us in terms of getting benefits from. In terms of age grade, we continue then, again, having 3 competitions every year for age grade boys football in the zone, which again is a huge milestone. We are seeing the consistency now in performance of the teams. We are seeing the consistency in the players coming right from schools competitions. The Dr. Motsepe Foundation sponsored the African Schools Football Championship. We are seeing players coming right from schools competition, under 15, you see them in under 17, under 18, under 20, all the way into the national team. Travis Mutiaba is one of the best examples you can give for that journey. And I think that consistency also will begin to bear fruits. And if we continue being patient and doing the right things, we will definitely see the outcome of the work that we are putting in.
Of course, let's talk about football and youth development and all that. The competition we have happening in Kampala right now is a qualifier to the under 17 Africa Cup of Nations, which is a pathway to the under 17 World Cup. The top 2 teams are from these qualifiers here in Uganda will qualify for a 12-team tournament in Ivory Coast next year, where out of 12 teams, the 10 teams will eventually qualify for the World Cup that has been expanded for 48 nations. How important will it be for 2 of those 10 teams going to the World Cup to be from the CECAFA region?
So you seem to really have a lot of information from inside. That might change slightly. So the tournament in Ivory Coast might be 16 teams. So
they might expand it.
They might expand it. Listen, the expansion at FIFA level came while we had already gotten into all these zonal competitions. So this it might have also changed, and we might have had, and hopefully going forward, we might have more qualifiers from the zone going to the,
like at the next editions, we might have more representatives from the region
from the zone. But how amazing will it be for us to have 2 teams, going to the under 17 World Cup from the zone. And that's our prayer. And our prayer is that the two teams that will qualify from these qualifiers will be the best will to represent us, will be competitive enough. We already have Kenya and Tanzania representing us in the under 20 AFCON.
Yeah, which is also a qualifier for the World Cup.
Which is also a qualifier for the World Cup. So it's our prayer that we get, two strong teams going into the continental qualifiers, and it's our prayer that after that we'll have two teams in the World Cup. It will be a great day for all of us.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but also the under 20 World Cup was expanded to 24 teams.
I want to believe so.
Yeah, I think so.
I
think so. It was also expanded to 24 teams. But then how does that motivate or inspire these other nations that are probably not taking underage football seriously?
I wouldn't say they're not taking underage football seriously. I think everyone is. There's constraints, yes, for sure. There's challenges, yes, for sure. There's financial constraints, there's logistical issues, there's school calendars that, But I think, like you said rightly, with the higher chances for participating at a global event like a World Cup, at whichever age grade level, at whichever level that you'll be participating in, I think that's a huge motivator. And if we've been tinkering and tampering with our calendar every year to just try and see how best do we accommodate everyone, how best do we have competitions where a calendar that allows as many as our member associations as possible to participate in. It's never easy. It's never a walk in the park because of the diversities that we have across the zone, but we will continue doing it. And we don't want it to be that our member associations cannot compete at these events because of a poor calendar, which we really don't want to be. And we'll try and mitigate any other reasons that hinder them from participating. But listen, I wouldn't take this as I wouldn't take this tournament the under 17 with 16 teams. We've always had 9 teams, 8 teams, participating. We've had 10 teams participating in our qualifiers. So this is an outlier event for whatever reason that has been. And it's our hope that going forward, we'll continue having, 85-90% of our member associations participating in our qualifiers.
Then elaborate more on our relationship with CAF and FIFA. Now, people see most of these schools tournaments happening, but they don't know how much investment CAF or the Patrice Motsepe Foundation is actually investing to make sure that they happen not only in the region, but across the continent.
Speaking specifically to the African Schools Football Championship, it's an initiative by Dr. Patrice Motsepe, the CAF president, and the Motsepe Foundation. I think a very fantastic initiative to, go as low down as possible in the value chain of football in terms of trapping in talent and getting the talent into the game at the earliest stage. And I think it's been a fantastic investment by the Motsepe Foundation, both in terms of the resource, both in terms of getting the competitions played, but also the prize money that goes to the schools, to the winners and everyone that comes. So a really huge contribution from the Motsepe Foundation. And like you said, it's not just for this zone. We have 6 zones across Africa, and all the zones, it's uniform, it's consistent. So you can imagine reaching out to all 54 member associations of CAF. That's really a huge investment, not just in getting the tournament played, but also in terms of the prize money that goes to the winner. And very importantly, the follow-up, because the prize money is not given in cash. So what happens is the winning schools, the winning member associations identify a project, be it school buses, be it building of classes, be it building of pitches in schools, and then the foundation then goes in and invests in that. So I think quite a game changer, very impactful. The legacy will be amazing for years to come. And I think we really have to be very grateful to CAF, to Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and to the foundation for the huge contribution into football.
Where do you see the CECAFA region in the next 5 years across board?
I see a region, a zone that will be very consistent in terms of the competitions they will be offering. A zone that will be very palatable to partners and sponsors, and we'll have sponsors and partners on board. A zone that will be consistently competing. Its member associations will be consistently competing at continental competitions, and a zone that will consistently also send its member associations to global competition across all age grades. And for sure, our biggest dream is to, participate in the FIFA World Cup, both men and women. In the women's World Cup, we've been there or thereabout with Kenya, with Uganda, Tanzania coming close enough. And, it's our prayer that in the next 5 years, we'll also have, this is the only zone that has not sent teams to the World Cup. And it's our prayer that that can happen while we're in office and not just in our lifetime.
But also our inconsistency at the biggest football competition on the continent, the Africa Cup of Nations. I remember when it was first expanded to 24 teams, that was the competition in Egypt. We had Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and I think Burundi. 4 countries from the region representing the Africa Cup of Nations. The next one in Cameroon, the number dropped. Yeah. Ivory Coast, the number dropped. 2025 in Morocco, we have only Tanzania and Uganda representing. Though would want to add DR Congo into the equation, but
I thought Sudan had qualified.
Did they? Yeah, Sudan too. Yeah. 3 countries from the region are qualifying for 24 team tournaments. How do we turn this around?
Listen, we will continue creating and fulfilling our mandate of creating a pathway and being part and parcel of the development at grassroots level, at youth level, offering consistent competitions to ensure that we identify the talent and we bring it in the football fold. We will continue doing that. However, you do realize that participation at elite level for whichever competitions it is, be it AFCON, be it the World Cup, that is really the purview of the member associations. And we believe that each and every one of our member associations, not just our member association, every FIFA member association in the world wants to compete in continental competition, wants to compete in the World Cup. And they want to resource and put everything behind it to ensure that they are competing at that level. Whichever role we can play as CECAFA for our member associations in ensuring that that happens, we will continue doing it. But we cannot take away the fact that elite football and national teams and their performance is really the purview of the member associations and what strategically they want to achieve out of their football team. So we will continue to play our role. Like I said, we will continue to provide the foundation and the pathway and be part and parcel of the development. Because really, if we are not doing what needs to be done at grassroots level, at development level, then we will continue seeing the inconsistencies at national team level. But if we continue producing good players, if we continue providing a pathway that churns out players that can be able to compete at national, can be able to make it to the national teams, then we have provided a caliber of players that can be able to compete, qualify for AFCON, qualify for the World Cup, and we'll have done our bit.
Of course, lastly, 6 weeks or even 5 weeks from now, the region is going to be hosting the CHAN finals. 2 years from now, this will be a first. 2 years from now, the region will be hosting the Africa Cup of Nations, which will also be another first. How huge and significant that the zone actually is hosting these competitions? We've tried in the past before, 96 for the AFCON, 2018 for the CHAN, it never happened. CAF has given us another opportunity, and if those 2 tournaments eventually happen in Uganda, East Africa, starting with the CHAN in February and the Africa Cup of Nations in 2017, how huge is this?
I think let's not also take away the shine from Rwanda, who hosted CHAN in 2015.
2016, yeah.
2016. So
we always forget that. I don't know why.
They're our member association, they're part and parcel of us. So CHAN is not a first for us.
Yeah, it will be a second.
It will be a second one for us. Rwanda hosted it before. The subsequent year was meant to go to Kenya. It didn't happen, but we are here now.
Okay, that would have been back-to-back tournaments,
It would have been back
2016 and 2018.
Exactly, it would have been back to back. It didn't happen, but here we are now. 3 countries. Again, I think from that perspective of co-hosting, I think it's a first. So we very proud of the Pamoja bid and winning that bid against very formidable opposition, and getting a chance to host a CHAN. Really looking forward to it. Just going around the 3 countries in the last couple of months and seeing what the government and what the federations, the member associations, the AFAs, the efforts they are putting into, improving their infrastructure, improving their stadia,
Building new stadia,
training grounds, what government is doing in terms of road infrastructure, in terms of security, in terms of hotels and accommodation. And I think more importantly, just in terms of capacity building and resourcing for people, for the human resource across the territory, in event management, in football management, that is really a fantastic legacy that will be left behind, and a huge leap forward just in terms of football growth in the region, and we are extremely excited about that. 2027 AFCON, that will be a big one. It's our hope, prayer, that these experiences in CHAN will be a trial run for
I mean, it's the reason we asked to host CHAN.
exactly,
to help us prepare for the big one.
2027. So hopefully that we'll get it right, and whichever hiccups we will face, we should be able to correct them for us to have a bigger and better AFCON. The bar that was set by the last AFCON in Cote d'Ivoire is really
And
high.
the one that is going to be set by Morocco.
And Morocco it never shies from giving a good performance and a good show. And Morocco, remember, are hosting the World Cup again in 2030. So I think Morocco will really go out of their way. So if the bar that was set by Cote d'Ivoire and what we anticipate from Morocco is anything to go by, it means that we really have to roll our sleeves, dig our heels in, because we can't, as the 3 countries, as a Pamoja bid, we can't afford to.
I mean, just imagine a successful 2025 and that ceremony at the final day where they're handing over the CAF flag to the next host.
Exactly.
That means all the eyes of the world, and because the AFCON is no longer a tournament for the African audience, but the global audience.
And
all the eyes of the world are turning.
The spotlight moves immediately after that flag has been handed over, and it moves to the region. So it will be a big one for us. I've no doubt that there's commitment from the 3 governments, there's commitment from the member associations, there's commitment from the presidents, the excos, and everyone stakeholder that has been involved into it. There's a lot of excitement. It's one of the few times I've seen the footballing fraternity in these 3 countries come together. The rivalry between Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania has always been a very fierce one. But on this one, you see all the rivalries being put aside and everyone coming together in the spirit of Pamoja and brotherhood. I think it's amazing. And I think the commitment that we've seen from our federations and our governments, I'm more than sure that we will definitely have an amazing AFCON, and we will also give the world something to remember about us.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Auka. In Uganda, we always have something we call a Katarekeka, which in English would probably be your final remarks or something that you would have. But your final remarks as we end this interview.
I think a huge thank you to Uganda for having us here. We've been here for 3 events. We had a medical workshop for CECAFA here in Uganda. We then had the African Schools Football Championship, and now we have the Under-17. So we've been here for a bit of time, and we'll be here longer. We'll be having
Looks
Christmas.
Like you enjoy Uganda more than any other country in the region.
We'll be having Christmas. We'll be having Christmas in Uganda. So we're looking forward to that. We are here until the 27th of this month. So to FUFA, to the people of Uganda, to the government of Uganda, thank you so much for having us. Good facilities, the Ham Stadium, like Kivubo, that we are using. You get inside there and it's really a world-class facility.
How do you say yesterday on TV? You get in there and it's like you're in Europe. I was like,
it is. It's a very good facility. I mean, very impressed by it. But I think, like I said, again, to the Ugandans, if we can come out in large numbers to support our under-17 teams.
Yeah, they play beautiful football.
I mean, listen, at under 17 and at women, at age grade and at women's football, they express themselves. It's about passion, it's about being creative, it's about, going outside there and enjoying themselves. And more and more, and I mean this, I find myself really compelled to leave the comfort of my seat, go to the stadium to watch under 17, even when it's like World Cup qualifiers in Nairobi, whatever, to go and watch women's football and World Cup and age grade football is really exciting. So I will want to urge Ugandans to come out in large numbers, not only to support their national team, but to also support, adapt the other teams that are playing in this competition. And again, to everyone watching us, to partners that are watching us, we want to assure you that we are in the path to creating a formidable CECAFA, an entity that we want each and every one of you to be associated with. And to every football lover, we want to give you an opportunity to be part and parcel of this journey that we want to walk and to grow football in the region. And when history books are written, we'll say we did our part. So thank you so much to Uganda and to all of you for having us. We really love it here.
Well, that has been our discussion with the Executive Director of the Council of East and Central Africa Football Association, none other than John Auka. The second name, please.
Gecheo.
Gecheo. Well, keep it to CK Sports. Remember to subscribe. Remember to like. Remember to comment. And yes, remember to share. We'll be back with yet another interesting episode.